All right, this is CISS216, Intro to Web Development. Is that correct? Let me start by taking attendance. Tell you what, instead of taking attendance, because what I did is I combined the online section and the campus section into one big section. Just makes it easier to communicate with everyone and so on. If you could just let me know what your name is. You do not have to give a fun fact about yourself, though. All right, because I know a lot of people don't like that. So we'll do that. And it would help if from now in you sat in alphabetical order. No, I'm just joking. Let's see. Actually, I will call out your names because they are separated by section. Sarjenka Aristan, Colin Brodnick, Randall Burr, Wyatt Carrick, Jeremy Chamberlain, Craig Fortuno, Gok Lee, Greg Murray. If I mispronounce anyone's name, please let me know. Andrew Rubinsky, Noah Sherrill, Sean Siniger, Gina Singer,
Here.
Joshua Spurlock, Timothy Stevenson, Anthony Stoll, Matthew Williams. Anyone here who I did not call? Yes.
I'm online class, also classroom.
Pardon me?
I am actually online class.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. All right. Cool. That's fine. You are welcome here to sit in on the campus lecture if you wish. All right. What we're going to do today is we're going to go over sort of the basics of the class, how the class is going to be structured, and so on. And then we'll actually get into some of the material in the class. So we'll spend about half the time talking about how the class is set up and half the time doing the actual material in the class. I'm not going to read you the syllabus because you certainly can read it yourself. I'm just going to point out some key points in it. First part of the syllabus talks about ways of getting a hold of me, and that is important. It's important if you're having difficulty in the class to get your questions addressed as soon as possible. I know some people like to figure things out on their own, and that's great. And that's great if you feel that you're making progress and you're getting closer to your solution. However, if you're sort of spinning your wheels and you're not really making any progress and you're trying really hard and nothing is coming from it, then that's time to get help. All right, there's no shame in asking for help. That's what I'm here for. And there's a lot of ways to get help. You certainly can raise your hand and ask a question during class. You are welcome to sit in on, you can ask me questions during lab. You're welcome to come to some of my other lab periods, which I will post in the next week or so. I'll post what my other lab periods are. I make the offer to all my classes that they can come in to any of my labs. And that's a good way for you to get additional help if it's not working for you. I will have office hours that you can come to, and if the office hours don't work, if you contact me, we can arrange other kinds of office hours. If for whatever reason you're not able to come down for office hours, we can Skype, we can talk on the phone. There's a lot of ways that we can connect and I can get your questions answered. But I have to know that there's a problem in order to do that. I have to know that you're having difficulties. So my end of the bargain is to make myself available a variety of different ways. Your end of the bargain is to actually, when you run into issues and when you run into questions, is to bring it to my attention and ask me the questions. So if we do that, we'll get through this okay. So there's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. It doesn't matter to me which one you take advantage of, just take advantage of one of them. There's a whole bunch of text about the description of the class and all that. You should read it to understand really what the focus of the class is, what it is that we're trying to accomplish in this class. Text and materials. You are to check Canvas between classes. I will post announcements. I will post corrections maybe to if I misspoke, if I happen to say something incorrectly during class, or someone has a question that I don't know the answer to off the top of my head, I will post to Canvas. You do need some sort of storage media, such as a USB drive or cloud storage. You can store files on Canvas. You can email them to yourself in a pinch, because as many of you probably know if you've had classes in here at LC before, the machines reset themselves every time they're rebooted. So if you have files out there on a computer, then when you come back the next time, they're not going to still be there. All right, so it's important for you to take a copy of the stuff that you're working on. This is your class. It's my job to help you understand the material. All right. We're not that big of a class. We have 16 or so people in here, so it's not that huge of a class. So if you have questions, you're welcome to ask them during the class. Feel free to stop me and tell me that you don't understand something or whatever. The worst case scenario that will happen there is if I think it's something maybe specific to a problem that you're having, maybe I'll tell you that we'll talk about it during lab. You know, and maybe for whatever reason, I don't want to take up the class time with it, but it's not a problem if you bring up a question maybe relating to something specific to your assignment. If I think the class will benefit from hearing the discussion, I'll answer it for the class. If I don't think the class will benefit, then we can talk about it during lab. There's a whole bunch of college policies that you should review. Instructor policies concerning late assignments. Take the time to review these. In a nutshell, I reserve the right to deduct some points if you're late. That doesn't mean I will always deduct if you're late. If you let me know what's going on, and you don't have to let me know personal details or anything, but if you're a little under the weather and you expect to turn in an assignment late, just say, hey, I haven't been feeling well. This assignment is due on next Wednesday. I won't get it in until Thursday or Friday. That's fine. I will almost certainly not deduct any points in a case like that. Or if you're struggling with something that you don't quite understand how to do something, and we talk about it in lab, and it takes you a little bit of time to figure out what you need to do. I don't have an issue with that, and I won't deduct points. I do get, however, students that simply disappear. I don't hear anything about them, from them, and then I will get week 2 assignment turned in during week 8 or something like that. And that's no exaggeration. In a case like that, I certainly reserve the right to deduct some points. All right? You don't have to let me know, again, personal details or whatever, but you should give me the courtesy if you are going to be late with an assignment to let me know. Now, don't use this as a crutch, however. All right? If you are late with a given assignment because maybe you didn't understand it, or maybe you were ill or had to go out of town or something like that, that's one thing. But if you are habitually late, if every assignment you're turning in late and they're getting later and later, then that's a sign something needs to change. That maybe you need to talk to me and we arrange for times to go over some of this material individually, or maybe you need to devote more time to this class or whatever. But a few late assignments or a single late assignment, not a problem. Continuing to be late on assignments, that is a warning sign, and we should talk about it. There is, your grade is comprised of 100 points. There'll be 11 homework assignments, so almost one per week. Not exactly, but almost one per week, at 5 points each. There will be a portfolio that you'll turn in part of the way through the semester, and then you'll turn it in at the very end of the semester. A portfolio is a collection of your work that you put together and annotate. You give some commentary and some reflection upon. And we'll talk more about that later on in the semester. Keep all your assignments is the bottom line. So when you finish the assignment, don't discard it. Keep a copy of it. The two parts of the portfolio are worth each 5 points. You have a project that you do in 2 parts. One part is the design, and one part is the actual project itself. And 15 points for the design, 20 points for the actual project. That adds up to 100 points. You'll have something due pretty much every week, other than this. This is a week to get started, so nothing due this week. Assignments, if they're assigned in 1 week, they're due the Wednesday of the next week. Now, you might think that's odd because we only have class on Tuesday and Thursday. The reason that assignments are due the Wednesday of the week is what I have started to do, and what works really well, is I actually grade your assignments during our lab period. That way, you are there, and if there's a problem, I can address the problem with you directly and immediately, and you then have an opportunity to rework the assignment and correct it. That's something that I'm very big on. If you think about it, if you're on the job, if you were supposed to create a page that had 15 links on it, and you only created 10 of the links, well, your boss isn't going to say, well, okay, that's fine. We'll just go on to the next part of the project. No, you have to go back and correct the things that you've done incorrectly. All right? So I'm very much big on if you do finish the assignment and it's not correct for whatever reason, that you have the opportunity typically to go back and correct it. That's one of the reasons it's important to get things done in time. Because if you were turning things in very late, towards the end of the semester, in the rush to grade everything, you might not have the opportunity to go and correct it and redo it. So the way this will work is something that I assign this week is due the following Wednesday. So week 1's homework assignment, which is here, is due January 29th. That's a week from tomorrow, a week from this coming Wednesday. That Thursday, I will grade in lab. All right? So I will review everything that's been submitted, and I will go in and I'll grade your assignments, and I'll be able to give you feedback. And that way I'll give you immediate feedback. All right? So you don't have to wait for me to have time to grade it. I'll give you immediate feedback. If you have any questions about what I mean about something, we can get them addressed and answered right there on the spot. All right? So I experimented with this last semester, and it really seemed to work out well, provided that you come to lab. All right? So it's important to come to lab. Now, if you happen to finish the assignment before the due date, I will look at it during lab when you do finish it. So if, for example, you have something finished prior to Wednesday and you want me to look at it on next Tuesday's lab, I'll be glad to take a look at it. But try to have it done by Wednesday so I can grade it the following day, Thursday, and go over it. Are there any questions about that? Because this is sort of a different policy for me. I know probably this is most of you's first class with me, but it is sort of a new thing I'm trying, and it seems to really work out well. Because for you to learn, you have to get feedback on what you do. You know, can you imagine you do something and no one tells you if it's good or bad? Yeah, you know, it's going to be very hard to progress. All right. Two things I'm going to talk about just briefly, but we'll come back to later on in the semester, but I want to introduce them to you, is in the module section. All of the materials are in the module section. And there is a module for the portfolio, and there's a module for the semester project. All right. For both of these, there is an overview, and there are drop boxes that tell you when it's due and more information. Over the next couple of weeks, read through the documents in these two folders. You don't have to do it for next time, but just kind of have that on your radar. Over the next week or so, read those, because we'll be talking about those pretty soon. And it's always better if you've read ahead and have previewed the material before we discuss it as a class. So, in addition to the weekly assignments, you have a portfolio and you have a semester project. For now, we're not going to go over it in detail, but before the next couple weeks, make sure you've read both of these sections. All right? And pay attention to the due dates on them. Not coming for a while. The first part of the portfolio is due March 11th. The first part of the project is due April 8th, so you have a little bit of time. But, you know, time goes very fast. All right? So be sure to read that and get an introduction to that. Other than that, the material will be organized into weekly modules. Weekly modules will have typically a document that says what you should do this week, where I list the goals and the activities and the assignments for the week. And I might supply some additional links. I do have a fair use handout that we'll talk about in a minute here. What this relates to is if you are using material from another website on a site that you're creating for a class project. This doesn't relate to if you were creating a personal website or a commercial website. But if you're creating something for educational, you're allowed to use no more than 5 images by an artist. So consider that 5 images from a website. So if you want to do your project on the Cleveland Browns, for example, you could use 5 images from their website. All right? Isn't really critical for this class, but it could be. Motion material, you could use up to 10% or 3 minutes of a video, whichever is shorter. All right? And so on down the line. The other thing that's important is that you give attribution. So if you take an image from somewhere, put it somewhere on the page that this image is from clevelandbrowns.com or whatever. The main thing the main relevance in this class deals with the use of images, because we don't really get into multimedia quite as much. in this, and therefore photos is probably the area that is most relevant. I record the classes in video. All right, I make video recordings of the course. And I do that for a couple reasons. First of all, I teach an online section of this course, all right, and it's nice to be able to provide them videos of the lectures, all right, so that they can watch them. It's also good that if you have to miss a class, you can always review the video. The video, again, the quality of the video isn't necessarily amazingly good, but I post the example files along with the videos. So if I'm going over an example, it might be a little hard to see on the screen, but I post the files as well. So that should help you follow what's going on. So at least you have that in case you miss a particular class. So if you have car trouble or you're ill or whatever happens and you have to miss a class, you can always watch the video and at least get an idea, pretty good idea of what went on, and come to class with any questions that you need. So the videos for the class will be contained in the folder for that week. So in other words, later today, the video for this class will be in the week 1 folder. All right. Occasionally, as I'm lecturing, you will see things in Canvas that are not published. So your Canvas might look a little different than mine. Typically, what these are files that I've had from previous semesters that I keep around just because I might want to refer to them, but aren't really part of the class. So don't be alarmed if you look at your version of Canvas and don't see a couple of these things. All right. Any questions about any of that sort of material? All right. Let's get on to sort of the actual material in the class then. All right. This is Intro to Web Development, and our goal is to make web pages. All right. Creating web pages sort of brings together two skills that don't always go together in people. All right. This is sort of interesting. Creating web pages brings together sort of what I will call design skills. That is, knowing how to lay out and how to create pages and use fonts, use colors, use spacing, use all these techniques to lay out a page that's easy to understand, is attractive, and gets the message across. All right? Because the kind of presentation you do on a web page does matter, right? It does matter. It's not just about the content. The way that you present something matters as well. And it can either help the user in getting the message of the site, or it can hurt the user, all right? And obviously we want to develop websites where the design of the material helps the user appreciate the message of the site. Then there's the technical skills of how you do something. How do I make a background that's blue? How do I make a link on a web page? How do I put an image on a web page? All these things are sort of technical questions. Now, should I put an image on the page or should I just have plain text? That's a design question. All right? So throughout this course, we're going to be looking at both of these sort of skills sort of in parallel. Early in the course, we're going to start talking mainly about the technical part of web development. In other words, how do you put text on a web page? How do you create a link on a web page? How do you put a header on a web page, and so on? How do you make it a certain color or a certain font? And then we're going to focus, the focus will shift, and we'll spend probably equal time talking about the technical side as well as the design side. Like, what guidelines should we use when we are putting images on the page, and so on. All right, so we're going to start out by putting our focus on the technical aspect. Now, what are some of the things that can appear on web pages? Some of the different kinds of content that you can see on web pages.
Text, images, audio.
Yeah, those are three. Text, images, audio,
Animation.
animation,
Links to files.
links to other places on the web. Exactly. That pretty much covers it. There's probably a few more. Video, I don't think we mentioned. Under text, there's all different kinds of text, right? If we go to another site, there's headlines, and there's just plain text, and there are texts that are links, and so on. Now, the interesting thing about web pages is web pages are stored in just a plain text file. Does anyone know what I mean when I say a plain text file? Yes?
The file it's stored in doesn't show any images or have
Right.
any links. It's just text.
Right, it's just letters, just stuff that you type on the keyboard, if we bring this up. In fact, we can view the source code, that is the actual code for the web page, all right, of any web page. And you see, it's just a bunch of words and typing. I know I'm scrolling through it pretty quick, but we can pick another web page. That's the Google web page. Or we can look at LC's web page. Just plain old text. Just stuff that you can type on the keyboard. All right? Well, that's an interesting question then. So, how do we make all these things, text, images, links, animation, audio, how could we tell the browser what the content of a web page is simply by typing text? How could we use text to convey all those different things to the browser, all those different kinds of content? How do we do that? Does anyone have an idea? Yes?
Depending upon the format, how you type things in, it understands what it is.
Exactly.
Where to go and where to put
Right.
it.
Exactly. It's not that you just type freeform, any old stuff. You type using a certain language. You type using a certain code that tells the browser, hey, this word Google doesn't simply mean put Google on the page, the word Google on the page, but make it a link to Google. Or this code doesn't mean put these words on the page. It means show this image that you found in this file on the page. And so on down the line. So, what's the language that we typically use in creating the code for web pages?
HTML.
HTML. All right? HTML. What's it stand for?
Hypertext markup language.
Hypertext markup language. Let's make it really big. So, the format or the coding that we use to tell the browser, and you all know what a web browser is, right? It's Chrome or Microsoft Edge or Microsoft Internet Explorer or Firefox or Safari. A web browser is a program that allows you to view web pages. These browsers understand this language. They take the instructions that are in this HTML code and turn it into a living, breathing web page. All right? And the instructions are in this format called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. What does hyper mean? Just the word hyper.
Beyond.
Beyond. It's a good definition. If we say that someone is hyperactive, all right, what does that mean? It means that they're more active than normal, all right? If you talk about hyperspace in sci-fi, they always talk about let's go to hyperspace, whatever that means. It means sort of beyond regular space, all right? So when we look at the word hypertext, we're talking about the observation we made before, that we don't just have words on web pages. We have beyond words. We have more than words. We have images. We have links. We have multimedia, and so on. So, web pages contain hypertext. They contain more than text. Now, language, we know what that is, even though it might be hard to come up with a definition of language, Markup. What does markup mean? What does markup mean? Yes?
To change something? Or?
To change something. That's true. All right. A lot of people, in some classes anyhow, will mark up. Like, let's say this is a textbook. All right. And the instructor says, this second paragraph is important. All right? It's not just the same as any other paragraph in there. It's an important paragraph. It's going to be on the test. Well, a lot of people will, in their textbooks, take a highlighter and highlight it. All right? And say that's important. All right? So they physically marked it up. All right? They've changed it in some way. They've given it extra meaning. In other words, this paragraph and this paragraph are different levels of importance. All right? Now, the instructor might say, well, this paragraph here, that isn't important. All right? That's a little too advanced for this class. You don't really need to worry about that. So you might put a big X through it, saying, okay, that's not important. So you've marked it up. You've added additional meaning to say, hey, all these paragraphs don't mean the same thing to me. One is really important and the one isn't so important. All right? That's exactly what we do in the language HTML. We add additional information to tell the browser what a particular piece of text means. All right, so how do we do that? We do that through what are called tags. All right, we tag the content. So I'm going to start out and I'm going to create a fragment of a web page. This isn't a complete web page, this is just a fragment of a web page. All right? And to do this, I'm going to go into Notepad++. You don't have to use Notepad++. You could use regular Notepad. If you're on a Mac, there's other tools that you can use. You can download a text editor for web pages. I can help you find one if you have questions. All right. Actually, Notepad++ exists on the Mac, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a free download. It's open source, so you don't have to worry about purchasing anything. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a file. And I'm going to say, go create a file, a web page about, what would be a good topic for us to create a web page about?
Web design?
A web page about web design.
It's the first thing that pops in my head.
Okay, sure. We'll do that. We'll create actually no, because that's a lot like your first assignment. Good job, you almost trapped me. What?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, I know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, but I know my credibility as a computer instructor probably just dropped a lot. But yeah, I don't know. But we'll do that. All right. So I want to create a banner on the top of my page that says Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm going to put the markup to do that. All right. I've used what's called a tag. This is a tag. All your tags are going to look like this. They have the less than sign and the greater than sign. And inside it, there is the name of the tag, the type of the tag. This is an H1 tag. H1 stands for heading level 1. So it's going to be a header on the page. So it's going to be bigger font. All right. Now, notice that each tag, or this tag, and we'll notice pretty much all of them do, come in pairs. So this is the start tag. This is the ending tag. And notice that the ending tag looks like the start tag, except it has a slash before it. So this tells the web browser anything between here and here, anything between those tags is a top level heading. So what will it do? It will make it bigger and so on. So maybe I'm going to put an overview of Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to type some stuff in and then we'll come back and talk about it. Dungeons and Dragons, often abbreviated. Tabletop role-playing game. And that's as much as I know about Dungeons and Dragons. So I'll put ... there. All right, we could fill that in with more information. And I'm going to put in the ending paragraph. So notice what I have. I have an H1 tag, top level header. An H2, second level header. It's a second level header not because it's the second header, right? Think of it like as a logical level. In other words, overview is underneath Dungeons and Dragons. All right? it's like a subtopic of Dungeons and Dragons. So it's an H2. And then I have just a plain old paragraph here that has some text that isn't anything special. It's just an ordinary paragraph of text. All right. Now I'm going to save this. All right. I have to save it in a way so that the operating system recognizes that this is a web page. So I'm going to go up to File, and I'm going to say Save. And I'm going to make sure it says all types down here. All right? Because you can do the same thing in Notepad. And if you do Notepad, you have to make sure it says all types there. And I'm going to put it on the desktop. And I'm going to call it first.html. All right? So, make sure it says all types, where it says File, Save as Type, and save it with a name, something.html. And you can put it wherever you like, but just to keep things simple, for this, I'm going to put it on the desktop. All right? So I save it. All right? And here it is. And I can double click this. It'll ask me, on Windows, it'll ask me how I want to open it. I can pick up my favorite browser. And there's the page. The H1. How does the browser know? Well, the browser knows that H1 means top level heading. So it makes that bigger than the rest of the headings. H2 is a second level heading, so it's a little bit smaller. The P is just a regular paragraph, so it makes it normal size text. Okay? So now, if you look, this is the same file. There's only one file involved here. It's not like there's two different files. I'm just looking at that file two different ways. This is what users will see when your page is on the internet and when they view it with a web browser. This is what the page looks like when you, as a developer, start to work on it. All right? And you are editing it. So this shows you the actual code and allows you to change the actual code. You can kind of think this as being, this is like a photograph of someone, where this is like an X-ray of someone. This actually sees the internal operation of the web page, where this is the actual page that everyone is going to see when they view this page on the web. Now let's notice a couple things about the tags. Again, they come in pairs. Starting tag has the less than, the name of the tag, and the ending tag. The ending tag has the same as the starting tag, except it has a slash. Everything in between there gets that tag. All right. Notice how I put these on different lines. You actually don't have to do that. You could string everything together on one big line if you wanted to. That's sort of a nice thing about HTML code, is you get to write it whatever way is easy for you to read. All right? The browser understands the tags, and the tags are what the browser uses in determining how to display it. So, if I want to put a blank line between these, makes no difference to the browser. If I think that makes it easier to read, so I put a blank line between the tags, that's fine. If I want to write it like this, Makes no difference. All right? So when you're creating your HTML code, you create it in a way that is readable for you. The reason you do that is because a lot of times you're going to have to come back and make a change to a web page. And if you come back and make a change to a web page, then, you want it to be easy to read so you can easily go and change it. All right? I'm going to throw in a couple of tags really quickly, and I will explain them in more detail during Thursday's class. But this, what we have right here, is just a fragment of a web page. It's not a complete web page. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add real quickly a few tags that will make it a complete web page. There's a doc type. This helps the browser understand what language you're using. There's an HTML tag. That tells the browser that this is an HTML document. And that tag goes around the entire document. There's a head tag. That contains a title. And finally, there's a body tag. So, all the pages that you do should at least have these. The doc type, the HTML tag, the head, the title, and the body. And they'll have these other tags as needed. So let me go and save this. And notice the title is up here, but the rest of it looks like it did before. All right? Now, let's spend a minute looking at your first assignment. Your first assignment is to use the web and research the following topics. These are three of the languages, or three of the concepts that we're going to talk about in this class. HTML, HTML5, CSS. Create a web page that has an article about each of these topics. So summarize what you've learned about HTML, summarize what you've learned about HTML5, and summarize what you learned about CSS. And write a well-written paragraph about each of them. So go out, do some searching to find out about HTML, HTML5, CSS, and create a web page that looks similar to this, that will have not just one section, but three sections. A section about HTML, a section about HTML5, and a section about CSS. Okay? Now, for the most part, your time in lab is your time. All right? You're to work on your assignments. If you finish an assignment and you want it graded, let me know. Turn it in. Upload it to Canvas. And I can help you with that if you have any questions. Upload to Canvas and then bring it to my attention and I will grade it. Typically, I will upload my examples to Canvas as zip files. And if you're not familiar with zip files, we can review that in lab. Essentially what they are is they're a way of combining multiple files into one file to make it easier to upload and download. So I'm going to go and zip up this file and upload it to Canvas. And then that will be it. So we'll see you over in lab. Does anyone have a USB drive I could borrow for 5 minutes? All right.
What room is that in again?
Repeat that?
Which room is that?